All right, good afternoon, folks. Appreciate your patience. We are going to go ahead and get started briefly. All right, once again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Education, Youth, and Older Adults Committee hearing. I am Councilman John Bullock, the 9th District Chair of the committee. I'm also joined by Vice Chair of the committee, Councilmember Mark Parker of the 1st District. We're also joined by Vice President Sharon Green Middleton of the 6th District. Also Zach Blanchard of the 11th District, member of the committee, along with Councilmember Odette Ramos, 14th District, member of the committee. And Councilman Ramos is also the sponsor of the committee issue we're going to take up today, which is following up again on 250027R, informational hearing, home repair assistance for older adults. We know we also have several members, representatives from the mayor's office, the council president's office. We're also been joined by our housing commissioner, Office of Older Adults. We're just really thankful for everyone who's here. Also thankful for our committee staff, Julianne Jamat. And we are ready to go ahead and get started. So just to give you a little framework, this is for the purpose of inviting the Baltimore City Department of Housing and Community Development, Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, Mayor's Office of Older Adult Affairs and Advocacy, as well as relevant stakeholders to provide an update to the City Council on the status of home repair assistance programs for older adults in the city. And this bill was initially introduced on May 12th by Councilmember Ramos. Councilman Ramos, did you have any additional comments before we get started?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to you and the members of the committee for making time for another follow-up hearing today. We did have a hearing basically in July, and to start this conversation about the older adult home repair programs in the city. And really we concentrated on hubs and the light Office of, it's ORS, Office of Rehabilitative Services programs. And so today is really a follow-up to hear more about their progress on, they had said in the last hearing that there would be some changes in how things were organized in order to get through the backlog. The backlog was pretty significant in terms of over 1,400 families that were kind of on this wait list, and that's a pretty significant number considering that winter is coming, et cetera. So looking forward to continuing the conversation with DHCD about improvements to the program, and welcome the discussion from council members. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Ramos. One thing I'll say, as Councilmember alluded to, having community input is one of the most important things that we can do as a city council. I'll take a little bit of license here in that in the 9th District, we have many seniors, and we represent communities that need assistance. I know our constituent services manager is actually observed in this hearing online, but I know we also have a couple members from our community. Literally, I was in the Rosemont community earlier this week talking about this hearing coming up, And we have two constituents who actually have some things they would like to share. I know one in particular. So before we hear from the city agencies, do want to go to any public testimony. So feel free to step forward, just share with some of the issues that you're dealing with, because as you share these issues, this is helpful for us to understand what you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis and how we can make these programs work better for our people. So please come forward. And as you come forward, please just press the button on the right with the little person and just state your name.
Hello. Hello, my name is Peggy Scarlett. I live at 3209 Westmont Avenue. I've been there for 43 years, and I'm here because I need help for repair of my house. I live by myself. It's hard for me to get repaired because I get $900 a month, and by the time my gas and electric been like $500. So that's half of my money right there. And then they don't even say about the water bill or my insurance, life insurance. So I'm here asking for help repairing some things on my house, and especially my front step. It's very high for me because I had 2 knee replacements. And I can't step as high as I used to. So that's why I'm here today, to get help for my house. Thank you. And I thank y'all for letting me speak.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And that really speaks to one of the things we continue to talk about as a council, is that we want our folks to be able to age in place and to age in place with dignity. And so the things that were just mentioned are a big part of that. Mr. Coleman, feel free to come forward.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Vernoi Coleman. I live in the 3200 block of Prossman Street, and I need a furnace back. I haven't had a furnace in 5 years. I've been going through certain companies, and they just put me off.
You know, and the reason why it's important, and if there's anything else you want to add, please do it. But Mr. Coleman has reached out. I know you've gone to try to go through different programs, and this is a life and safety issue. We're talking about heat for an older adult, and again, it's just really critical. And I know that you've been going through it, and you've been reaching out to us. We've been trying to be helpful, but again, sometimes we run into barriers, and so hopefully we can find some ways to break through these barriers.
I hope so.
Thank you, sir.
I'm 72 years old. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that Mr. Coleman and Ms. Scarlett are connected with, I see Ms. Manigo out there, so with them. So hopefully that they'll, that he's able to get the attention.
Yes, and thank you. And we're all passing that same note to make sure, again, that folks are here to take advantage of those resources. So again, thank you for that testimony. I know they signed up. If anybody else is here to testify, we'll hear from you. If not, we will then go into our reports. And then go into our presentations. So. No, I think we got through. There's no more public testimony that I see. So I see the agency reports that go in this order. We have Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, Mayor's Office of Older Adult Affairs and Advocacy, Department of Housing and Community Development. I know they have a presentation. So did you want to go through the presentation, or do you want to?
Sure. It is afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee and council. Happy to be here this afternoon. Alice Kennedy, Housing Commissioner, Baltimore City DHCD. I'm here with Deputy Commissioner Nicole Hart. Sorry, I was getting the clicker, and Assistant Commissioner Brooke Paluzzi. I will just make a note that I'm going to start the presentation and then hand it off to the team. I have to get down to Annapolis for another meeting, so we're dividing and conquering this afternoon. I just want to overall reiterate DHCD's commitment to servicing older adults and our most vulnerable older adult population in the city through the different efforts that we do, whether or not that be, through our home repair programs, as well as through our comprehensive kind of, no wrong door policy of the light intake and assessment unit that also works to try to connect our older adults with resources, and especially with our partners at our housing upgrades to benefit seniors partners and group that we have as well. Since I'm gonna probably steal a little bit of thunder from later in the presentation, but we have made some changes actually since the last hearing. So one of those changes is we're actually executing, internally we discussed, and we're executing the Affordable Housing Trust Fund older adult repair funding in a different manner. So we're gonna be sub-granting that directly to our hubs partners, which just takes us out of the middle. It was working okay. It was working okay. But this actually takes us out. So previously, they were doing the work, we were paying the invoices and so forth, but just this puts all of the funding through separate grant agreements to the hubs partners and moving that. So that was a strategic implementation. We continue to partner with our hubs partner teams, leadership team, what they're doing on their side, which is kind of the outside city government program, and how we can best support them in their work. They've asked some questions of us in terms of, actually learning from us in terms of some of the things that we do with management. And Deputy Hart and Assistant Commissioner Paluzzi have been doing a really great job working with Terrence Smith, the director of the Mayor's Office of Innovation, the innovation team, not Mayor's Office, that's a different, the innovation team, really looking at the kind of pipeline and what can be done in terms of our side and cleaning up some of those items. So you'll see at some point, which will make it through here, part of that in terms of kind of an action plan on some of the items that they've been working on and improvements that will be made internally to being able to kind of move people through the processes. So I'm gonna just start off with the clicker and then hand it off. So we wanted to just remind everybody kind of where we are in terms of the Office of Integrated Client Services. I don't know during the last hearing that this was kind of fully understood or reviewed in this detail, but wanted to kind of really highlight that under the Division of Homeownership and Housing Preservation Management, we have Deputy Hart and then Brooke Paluzzi, who's the Assistant Commissioner that oversees the home construction services. And then we have Tommy Williams, who's the Assistant Commissioner overseeing constituent services, of which has the Office of Integrated Client Services in there as well. The Office, there we go. The Office of Integrated Client Services, this is where you'll see kind of a number of different components that fall in related to really being able to provide the assistance to our older adults through our social service coordinating supervisor, the Light Intake and Assessment Unit. Remember that Light is not a program itself. It is not funded to do repairs. We have a whole repair program, list of repair programs that Assistant Commissioner Paluzzi oversees. Light is just the intake and assessment component and how we can best help them and refer them to as many different programs that we can possibly refer them to that they need assistance for. So within that, Director Manigo oversees the Office of Integrated Client Services, which also includes our ombudsman team and our emergency response team, as well as our social service coordinators and senior social service coordinators that assist with completing applications, take phone calls, do home visits, and help move those applications through the Light Intake and Assessment Unit. So we just wanted to provide you all with a little bit more detail in terms of how those divisions are organized and the services that are provided in there. On this next slide, we do provide for you kind of an understanding of where we are with the pipeline as of the 9th of October. The pipeline is something that Deputy Commissioner Hart has been working on, and they've been looking at in terms of, I would say, cleaning up the pipeline and cleaning up the wait list. So this is part of that work that's also been done with the innovation team, trying to see, you know, there were some that were duplicate out, like there's duplicate applications, there's different components there. Yeah, and the wait list in terms of progress that we've seen, you know, overall in terms of those light referrals moving through, and where we are in terms of different components for also external hubs, like what we have on the external side, but this is specific. I just want to state this hubs total here is what is in our pipeline. This is not the external hubs partners. This is just the city. This is not external hubs partners. So want to also just be clear on that as well. And I don't know at any point if we were going to have the external hubs, what we can, okay, team work on. You have, okay. So now I'm actually going to turn it over to Deputy Hart so that she can go through and talk about kind of the action plan that we have that covers, you know, different areas, everything from customer service to the phone system, to increasing staff capacity, as well as technology, to be able to help move our older adults through the pipeline and be able to provide the best service possible and make sure that they're aware of, you know, where they are in a wait list, what to expect from service, how best to be able to also identify those emergency cases that come in. Sometimes those are more difficult, but these are 4 areas of improvement that we definitely know will help overall in terms of being able to increase our increase capacity and better align and create efficiencies when providing services to our older adults, and in partnership with not only our external partners, but also with our partners that are internal city agency partners as well. So I'm going to hand the clicker over to Deputy Hart, and I want to thank you all for the time on this, and just once again reiterate that we're really happy to be here and having these conversations. This is an important topic. It's an area that both myself and Deputy Hart and Assistant Commissioner Paluzzi all have a affinity for, I think is a good way to put it. Really having been focused on what we can do to assist our most vulnerable populations and our older adult populations to ensure that they have safe, healthy places to live, and how best to be able to provide that, whether or not it is through home repair, whether or not it's through some of the other coordinated services that we need to be able to provide. So from a team standpoint, the dedication and the heart is there to work to get improvement in the process, improvement in how services are delivered, and improvement in coordination with our partners, both through city agencies and our outside. So with that, I'll turn it over to Deputy Hart.
And thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate you.
All right, good afternoon. Deputy Commissioner Hart, Department of Housing Community Development, Home Ownership and Housing Preservation. So just to go into goal 1 and to improve customer service, again, we did recognize that we were having some issues. We did have some change in management in the light intake and assessment unit earlier in the year. And so after doing some review of some issues and concerns, we reorganized, there was reorganization of my org chart, which the commissioner has already presented. And so that is the new organization, which created the Office of Integrated Client Services, so that part of the increase in the staff capacity is that even the human service workers and the ombudsman and everybody would be cross-trained so that in the event that they run across someone who is in need of home repair services, all of those positions are in a position to be able to help and have the correct information to move the client forward. So just to start with the first bullet point, we reorganized customer and client services to streamline the services and to improve efficiencies. As you know, we did have some vacancies that were on the previous slides. And just to note, those interviews have happened for the senior social service coordinators. We did select 2 people, so we will have to have interviews again for the 3rd vacancy. And for the social service coordinator, we did select 2. No, we selected 1, I'm sorry. And so we will have interviews, we will have to have another round of interviews to fill the other 2 vacant positions. And as far as our office support team, we had 1 vacancy for an OSS2. That person has been selected, so that's going through the process. And then we have 5 office support specialists that are in this shop. 2 were already currently filled. We had 3 vacancies, and so we have a total of 16 people that we're in the process of scheduling interviews for to fill those vacancies as well. There are no vacancies on the crisis services and ombudsman side. All of those positions have been filled. I will say on the office support side, those vacancies are currently filled with Robert Half workers. And so the second bullet point was to talk about the phone answer rate, because we were notified that people were having trouble getting through on our lines. So collectively as an agency, we are going through revamping our phone service, going to a CSM model where people can be able to track their calls, we'll be able to listen on the calls. And so as an agency, we're going through that process to be able to upgrade our phone system. So we can keep you updated with that as that moves through the process. And it says to decrease high-level inquiries. I know they come to all of our council people when they can't get to our shop, and we do want to decrease that, people coming to you where they, can follow up with us. And so that's what we're working with the I-team with on how we can best increase our communication with people who are on the wait list, let them know that they're still on the wait list, and keep communication as they're moving through the pipeline. And so the beginning of that process, the I-team they're currently going through all of our pre-app applications that are in the portal. And so they're working on removing the duplicates, and they're also making sure that people are in the correct status, because that is a manual function of our neighborly system. So if somebody moves a status, that impacts how they're handled. So they're looking at our data as a whole in the pre-app stage, just to ensure that all of that data is correct. Once we do that, the plan is to come up with an auto notification system that will let people know where they are in the pipeline, so that people are continuously notified as far as that pre-app pipeline. And then it said it's expected outcomes to improve metrics, clear staff expectations, because we are focused on reducing complaints. I do not like complaints, and so we want to do whatever we can at every turn to reduce complaints. And part of what was discussed at the prior hearing was to improve written outreach by having infographics, flyers, and customer service manuals. We did already have a lot of printed materials. I've presented you folders with what we have. In some other slides, you'll see some of the things that we have in draft that will be produced. On the next coming slides, I'm going to present what we've created as infographics for you all to see of what we're going to send out to you all, to other agencies as well, just to understand and to be able to explain when people do come to you, so that you'll have the information to be able to give them to understand the different steps of our processes. So goal 2 was to improve the phone system. We are collaborating with BSID to improve our metrics, our answer rate. I will say from our September DHCD stat to our October 1, our answer rate did increase, so we have improved slightly in that past month. And we're working also with retraining staff, ensuring that doing additional customer service trainings. We had an agency-wide one, and then I'm doing them as well individually in my individual departments, with the different departments within my staff to ensure that we are improving our customer service and that our constituents are being treated with the highest level of respect and care. And we want to be able to monitor wait times with having phone calls returned, because our service delivery goal is to have any calls and voicemails returned within 48 hours. And then goal 3, staffing capacity, I already went over most of that. The only thing that has been added to that, we're working in collaboration with Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, because they have human service workers that are there. And we are planning to develop a pilot, and they agreed to do it in one center where the human service workers will help us work on the pre-app backlog. And so we are scheduling follow-up meetings now to plan out what that pilot with MOCFS would look like. The 4th thing was improving technology. We're looking at our neighborly system that we use to manage our cases to see how we can improve our portals so that they're also more customer-friendly, and to improve the functionality even for our staff as well. To make it as clear-cut as possible and as less cumbersome as possible, but to ensure that we're capturing all the correct data metrics that we need, because what that I have been imploring to staff is what goes in on the front side is what comes out on the back side. And so if they are doing everything the way that they've been trained and everybody is following processes, then our data comes out clean, which is why we have had to have focused so much on making sure that our data is clean, so that when we do the revamp of what, the portal needs to look like or any improvements, that we are protecting our data and we're making sure it's as accurate as possible. The other thing that I would like to highlight that also came out of DHCD stat, we're working with 311. We have revamped what our service request looks like. And so we're going through that process now. It used to go to weatherization, especially for no heats. And so it would go through weatherization, we would give them a call back within 24 hours and we would screen them. We've actually mapped it out so that it covers all of the repair programs. So, and it won't live specifically in weatherization, so it will live with our customer service team. And so when persons call, they'll have more options for what their needs are. So it won't be so restricted to weatherization to where people think that they shouldn't be calling 311, and they can call 311 for those other services that may be needed as well. So we've put that request in, it's been a few weeks. So we're waiting for the next steps from 311 to be able to go through the process to see how that works. But that is the plan, to have that rolled out by November 15th when we go into the no heat season for that. And also Assistant Commissioner Paluzzi, what she'll describe in her presentation are the improvements on her end for the no heat process when we go through the no heat season, but she'll get through that in her presentation. So you can go to I'm going to the next slide, I got the clicker. All right, so this is the first infographic that was developed just to be able to understand the steps for light intake and assessment. And so it shows the 4 steps that persons go through. And so when someone goes into the portal, it would have their status listed, either being in the wait list, the assessment phase, the document collection phase, or the certification phase. And so I think we went through them in detail the last time we were here. But this is just in the simplest form, the 4 steps that people go through just to be able to get to a completed application. I know the wait list has been the focus of the hearing, but once they come off the wait list and they get to the light assessment, what the coordinators do, we have a comprehensive assessment where we ask a series of questions about the house itself. We ask about the family. We ask about different questions. So we're asking questions about the deed, all of those kind of questions, so we can assess where the person is in the process. What's important to understand why people don't immediately go into a completed application. people start at different phases, right? So when we do the assessment, sometimes we don't even start at completing an application because we find out that there's a tangled title or there are issues with family members or things like that. So there may be a referral needed on the front end, maybe to Public Justice Center or somewhere like that, to ensure that they can get the deed transferred, or they can help us identify that there's a clear path to title. That is one of the things that we've improved in our processes. If we can get the okay from Public Justice Center, legal aid, somewhere like that, that they show a clear path to title, we are continually moving them through the process. So at one point in time, that would stop them, but as long as we have the attorney saying we have the clear path, we move forward and we continue people through the process of completing the application. But I just wanted to highlight, there are issues and concerns that we find in the assessment phase that we don't immediately move forward. We don't turn them away, we work with them. But when you see a long time period that somebody may have been working with light, it's generally because there are other things that are happening under that roof that impact the application being completed. Because that is the goal of light, to make sure that the application is completed and that the person will qualify for the program. So that happens in the assessment phase. And then step 3, which is the document collection phase, which can also be, it could take a while because it's dependent upon the constituent of having all of the necessary documents that they need to move forward. We do use CDBG funds, which dictate how the cadence of how the documents need to look. So if they're pay stubs, they need to be in consecutive order. There are dates involved. And so if they are not in the correct cadence, then we can't certify the application to move to the next phase. And so sometimes that's a back and forth, which may require home visits, which is why we do home visits, to help people look for the documents. We will even go help sort through mail, whatever we have to do to get the documents, to get the application completed. Certification is just an internal compliance check to make sure that we have all the documents that we're supposed to have to be able to move them on to the next phase. So that's something that happens internally, doesn't take a long period of time. Usually, once people get off of the wait list, steps 1, 2, and 3 obviously are dependent upon where we find a client. 2 and 3 are dependent upon where we find a client after assessment.
I was going to say, Deputy Commissioner, it's really helpful as you explain this process because, again, I think there's certain expectations you're helping us to manage. I do also want to note that we've been joined by City Council President Z. Cohen and then also by Councilmember Jermaine Jones of the 12th District. Please keep going. This is very helpful.
All right, so like I said, so it's presented in draft because this is the first time that everybody is seeing it. So, when opinions come out, if there are some changes or some suggestions, it can be edited, but this is what we intend to send out as the infographic to be able to describe what the process looks like. So I'll cover it up here. So let me go to the next slide. Just to describe the Office of Rehabilitation, these are their steps. The waiting list, the financial screen, scope and bidding, and then construction and payment. The bullet points on the right describe what happens in each phase. I don't want to steal Assistant Commissioner Paluzzi's thunder, but when she gets to her part, she will describe this all over again and in detail. But the 2 graphics are similar, but this is also what we have in draft that will go out so that you all will be able to explain or be able to understand where somebody is in the process for that. And the next graphic I have just includes all 8 together so that you can just see where it moves from step 1 to step 8 collectively, and it's inclusive of the 2 previous graphics before. So this is just an additional graphic to show everything from wait list to payment. And like I said, I did do the folders for everybody of our printed materials. So these are the things that we already have in circulation, our lead flyer, our lead brochure. We have our Ombudsman Services Handbook. What we have in draft is our Crisis Services brochure and handbook to be able to give families when we're on the scene for fires. So we're scheduling follow-up meetings with the fire department so that we can have one written document to be able to give out on either side. And Assistant Commissioner Paluzzi, she'll also be able to talk about her home repair handbook It's a handbook that will be given to every person once they get over to her side so that they can understand where they are in the process, because a lot of times we do get calls from people who've already made it off the wait list over to her side, confused about where they are in the process. So this is in development as well. And then, of course, the tenant's the tenant's rights handbook that we also have as well. Let me go back. And then our light flyer, we have it printed in English and in Spanish. And so we also have extras out in the hallway as well. So those are the things that we already have currently in print and what we have in process.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Hart. Okay, so we just wanted to give you a little bit of a snapshot of where we are currently and the progress that was made over the last 3 months in the Office of Rehabilitation Services. So currently, we received within the last 3 months an additional 37 clients from the Light Intake and Assessment Unit. So these are clients that had completed their application and had been referred to ORS. They were either added to the wait list or they were activated as a priority case. Over the last 3 months, we activated an additional 60 cases. So that means they were taken off of the wait list and completed their eligibility screening process or assigned directly to a rehabilitation technician. And then that would, those two processes happened concurrently. Traditionally, an ORS client would go through a financial screening first, just so that we can identify which funding sources they're actually eligible for. We are obligate to follow the requirements for each of the different funding sources, the federal funding requiring the most kind of intensive screening, including a property and judgment report. Those things take additional time and environmental reviews. So we rely first on grant funding through various bond funding and affordable housing trust fund first, if we can, and then utilize our federal funding when additional resources are needed. In scope and bidding, currently 46 projects were funded in that time frame to the tune of about $1.4 million. So we committed that funding alone in the last 3 months. 25 projects had their contracts signed, and those contractors were provided with order to proceed, so they'll be beginning construction shortly. Within the last 3 months, we also had 47 projects that were completed, and we paid out $711,567 in invoices for work processed just in the last 3 months. So we've had significant amount of work completed for FY Q1. All right, this is a snapshot of our, delay, there we go. So this is a total pipeline. So if you think of like the previous slide of being how much we completed in one quarter for our FY26, this is just a snapshot of where we are in real time. This data was pulled on 10/10, so just last week. So we currently have on the ORS wait list 95 clients. So those are clients that have completed application. We are just waiting on capacity to get them through financial eligibility screening and assigned to a rehab technician. One of the first steps we get when we receive the referral from the Light Intake and Assessment Unit is to do what we consider a priority client screening. So we are reviewing the application and the assessment as it came in to identify if the client has self-reported what they would consider an emergency. So we have one dedicated staff member who reviews the referrals and will call the homeowner immediately if that client was identified as a priority project. We see if they already have provided photos or evidence of just how bad the problem is. If not, that staff member will talk directly to our project the construction project supervisor to identify if that self-reported emergency warrants immediate activation. At that point, that's when those two things happen concurrently. The financial eligibility screening happens at the same exact time that we're going out and setting eyes on it, because we need to make sure that, you know, the house isn't in danger of collapse. We are always using every touch point as an opportunity to set expectations. We are reiterating that while we do consider certain projects a priority, we're not an emergency repair program, and we do talk with homeowners about what resources they immediately have available to them if we are dealing with something like a roof collapse, and it's just no longer safe for that person to remain in the home. Currently, there are 7 that are undergoing financial eligibility screening. We have 135 projects that are in scope and development. That means they've been assigned to a rehabilitation technician. That does not mean that that rehabilitation technician has necessarily gone out yet. 13 clients are waiting to be contacted by their rehabilitation technician. So the bulk of those 135 have at least had initial conversations with their rehabilitation technician. We have 32 projects that are actively receiving bids and moving towards contract signing. So that means their scope has been developed and we are receiving bids from contractors to complete that work. 104 clients are currently under construction and payment. That means the work is actively ongoing. Some of those have payments that have been processed either as mobilization draws. Sometimes we'll pay a certain portion of the contract ahead of time so that that contractor can get their labor and materials, or pay subcontractors up front for their resources. 56 have orders to proceed, and then 17 are completed and are waiting on final inspections and invoices. So currently, overall global view, we have 361 active ORS clients. There are 6 full-time rehabilitation technicians. And that means every tech usually has an active caseload of anywhere between 40 and 75. The more experienced rehabilitation technicians, we have some that have been with us 5-6 years or longer, will have that higher number, and we have some newer that we try to keep their workload a little less as they are getting more and more familiar with the process. And then we have some qualitative updates and some changes to the programs that have happened since the last time we've met. Probably the one I'm most excited about is the no heat emergency triage protocol for this winter, which we consider no heat November 1st through March 31st. Eligible clients will move to a fast lane for HVAC replacement only. HVAC contractors will be given a not to exceed amount and dispatched within 72 hours from the referral of light. What that means is we're bypassing assigning the rehabilitation technician and contacting the homeowner and scheduling a time to go out. The contractors will be given the go-ahead to do just a full replacement of the unit if they deem it a requirement, and they don't have to check in with us again. They will invoice us within the not to exceed amount. And they need to be able to go out and do that repair within 1 week. If they can't do that, then we move on to the next contractor in our list. This is really reliant upon the funding source, because some funding sources do not support this type of fast lane project. They can't do federal funding won't be eligible for this. So we are reliant upon grant dollars, which are limited. So contractors will be required to abide by normal ORS requirements. They still need to get permits, inspections to get paid. And we have kind of informally done similar projects, but this is formalizing the process and will not be relying upon a rehabilitation technician. We will be handling this administratively. Once that no heat emergency triage has been completed, the client goes back on the waiting list to receive any additional repairs that they need. So the goal is to make sure that the heat is working. Yes, go ahead.
One quick question, and I want you to still proceed, but just walk me through it. So let's say, for instance, I don't have heat.
Yes.
So where do I go? Who do I go to? Do I have to go through the light program? Just kind of walk me through it. I'm thinking, because I know there's people here, for instance, who may not have a furnace, who need that no heat emergency like right now.
There are two ways. You can call Light directly or you can call 311, which a lot of people do. So 311 is part of the reworking with DC Hearts had spoke about earlier, 311 going directly to the integrated client services and coming in through Light. So the referral will be handled through 311. We are obligated within those 72 hours once it gets to us to make contact with that client and try to schedule. So our whole goal with like this emergency no heat triage is just, we know 9 times out of 10 we're replacing an HVAC unit anyways. Going out and trying to just do fixes sometimes, the cost benefit analysis of how long we can string along a furnace to work when we know one isn't working. This way, we're working with contractors we've worked previously. They have the go-ahead to just go ahead and replace it up to a certain amount. Anything over that amount, they'll have to come back to us and ask for additional dollars. But 311 is probably the primary door
Thank you.
that people know about. Oops. This thing's getting a little... Okay, I missed one. Back. The other update, qualitative, that the commissioner had spoken about earlier was the Affordable Housing Trust Fund sub-grants. So we are issuing 4 sub-grants to what are considered the HUB's leadership team. So that's Green and Healthy Homes Initiative, Civic Works, Rebuilding Together Baltimore, and Neighborhood Housing Services Baltimore, for a total of $1.4 million directly to the leadership team of HUBs. This will bypass the HUBs program having to submit individual invoices from contractors to the Office of Rehabilitation Services and wait for them to get reimbursed. These subgrants also include 10% for their operating costs, and then they're currently in the final stages of being drafted and will be reviewed by legal shortly, and we hope to have those finalized by the end of the year. So that is the end of my presentation for just kind of our snapshot update. The rest of the slide deck was from previous. The only thing that we did update on here, I know for sure, is there's an update to the amount of ARPA that had been spent previously. That was in the 4 million, and now it's at a little over 5.3 million on the ARPA hubs funding that had been spent in the last 3 months. Did I miss anything, DC Hart? It's all just resolution questions from here on out from last time we met. There's nothing, yeah. Okay. So that's it for us, and I'm happy to answer any questions or DC.
I'll just say thank you very much. I know I jumped in and asked a few questions. Want to go first to Council President Cohen, if you have any questions, and then to Councilmember Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for the good work that you do. This is a city council that is deeply concerned about the safety and well-being of our older adults, particularly as it relates to housing conditions. So do want to just start by thanking you for the work that you've been doing. We'll also note this council added a small amount of money in the last budget to support the HUBs program. It's not enough, but it's something. I wanted to just level set and understand, and this may end up being a committee request. I don't know if you can answer this here, but I saw the backlog. I saw the pre-application versus application versus completed. It's large. What would it take to clear all that out? Like, if we were operating at maximum capacity, if we were able to provide housing repairs to older adults at a rapid clip, so that not just when there's an emergency breakdown in people's heat, but any of these issues which we know can cause real harm to our older adults, what would it take financially and in terms of capacity for HUBs to be able to get there? And light.
I could get you a number, but I would have to come back with the number, because that would include staff, that would include staff in light, that would include additional rehab tax and a significant amount of capital to be able to fund it. Because projects are coming in at an average of how much?
It's increased significantly. Our average is about $37,000, a little bit more than that, per job. And as the job amounts increase, the amount of time we spend on each project significantly goes up. It's correlated. So it's a multifaceted question because we do as much as we can with the resources we have, but sometimes that means there are other items that we would like to take care of for someone that don't get included in the final scope of work. So there's kind of, we'll have to get back and give you some numbers. There's like, what is reasonably accomplished, and then pie in the sky, like how much could we sink into every house? Like that is a number that I'm not sure I have like a quantitative analysis for.
Understood.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I could make a committee request, which is within 3 weeks of today, could you come back with a 1 to 3 page analysis of, and I don't want to go pie in the sky, but what it would take to close the backlog, to meet the gap, and to be on a trajectory that we are moving more expeditiously than we currently are. I think that it's extremely important to just know what our North Star is here so that we, the council, the administration, can work to help us get there and try to figure out what are the steps we need to take. But does that make sense as a assignment to give back to this committee, a 1 to 3 pager, just laying out an analysis of how much, if we were to really try to close the gap, what it would take?
Okay.
Does that work? Excellent. Mr. Chair, is that cool?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
We're taking it down.
Thanks, Julianne. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Again, I think it's very well timed as we look at our budget for our city and thinking about what our our priorities should be. This should be one of them. Councilman Ramos, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could add a friendly amendment to the request that we get the same information from the Hubs folks. So we have the information for light in terms of what you all super need, and then I know our Hubs friends are here and what they need, because we, obviously this is a priority for us, and I appreciate the council president making it a significant priority. So if we could have both, that would be great. I know the Hubs folks have been working with the light on comparing numbers, so that's good. I meant light, ORS, or whatever it is, and so we can go from there. That would be helpful. I do have several questions, but want to certainly make room for my colleagues. I have some questions and I really appreciate the detailed presentation about the integrated services, because you're right, it wasn't clear last time, so I do appreciate that. You've broken it down a lot more. All of these positions, this is on slide, a couple of slides in, that has Director Manigo there, there's several that are, it sounds like these are all vacancies that you're trying to fill. And so, although the Ombudsman's office, they're doing great work, and they're all out there doing the great work. So I guess a similar question to the council president is, how long, follow-up is how long these are going to take to fill in these vacancies? It sounds like you're actively working on it. Yeah. Okay. And because I think that's part of this, it's extremely important. What is going to be the outreach plan relative to getting to residents? So I'm glad they're doing the change to 311. That makes total sense because everybody is trained on calling 311. So that makes a lot of sense. But I have a letter here that I got from a constituent today, handwritten because she doesn't do email and doesn't have internet, about the fact that she's been waiting since I'm gonna give this to you, waiting since 2023, where she did have an assessment through Light program, and did get somebody to come out and say that there was about, $20,000 worth of work that has to be done on the house, and hasn't heard back. And when she called the office, that there was, the answer was another director would be coming in, that there were some staffing changes, which I know you alluded to earlier, so hopefully that is taken care of. But I want to really get her the repair that she needs. She's got a leaky roof. She's got something wrong with her furnace. So, I mean, the fact that she's coming in with a piece of paper, it means that we are gonna have to do some more work on the outreach side to make sure that folks know about the application, but also can get help with the application. And I know I know you've come to some of my constituents' houses to try to get them to get their applications in. But I'm going to give you this so you can follow up with her. But also, well, I made a copy for myself. So, but what are we doing to make sure that the constituents who are not, online, that they're able to get the paper application? Are we being more proactive? What's the opportunity here?
So we do mail applications as well, which is why it's extremely important that we make sure that we improve our phone system so that we can make sure that we're capturing, our phone calls. Because we recognize older adults don't have email addresses, and we deal with that all the time, especially when they say, well, I have to wait for my daughter, or I have to wait for my niece to come or whatever to be able to do certain things. So we certainly identify that, which is why it's been important working with the innovation team to get all of our information kind of scrubbed down so that we know who those people are. Because what we have anticipated is that we're going to do a mail out because older adults, they do check their mail. And then for persons who, we do door knocking as well. As you know, we're working with the vacant reduction. And so also part of this is looking at, who are in those areas and who we already have in the system. And that has become part of our new prioritization process. You guys can use the braces. Right, so from a block strategy, and that's one of the things that HALA is working on. So we have a part in the system called property details, and we're adding that vacant reduction, those target blocks, so that we can pull an address and see what council district they're in, and we want to be able to see what, if they're in those target blocks, because that's also, like I said, a new level of prioritization. So those people are already, anybody in those areas are already going to be expedited off of the wait list. So those are kind of like the first people that are going to be targeted. And so we have a door knocking campaign. We're going to have some other campaigns. We talked about having billboards, buses, and doing a full all-out kind of like media scale of these are the services that are offered. Unfortunately, the population that we're talking about, that's not the population of QR codes and having, being able to access a cell phone. We do continuous outreach at the senior centers. And so we do a partnership with them. We are working with the neighborhood organizations to even teach them how to do the applications as well. If anybody requests for us to come out, we can do a teaching session. We can schedule staff to go to any location, and we'll staff there. And then that way we're in the community and people can come directly to us in the community as opposed to having to come downtown. We also have our location at 1135 North Gilmore where people can come on the west side to walk in. So we take walk-ins as well. So any way that people come, we're willing to be able to assist them. And we'll also have any open idea on how to be able to reach people. We're always open to, if it's a community event, being able to staff somewhere, do applications. My staff, they have laptops, they have iPads. It's a web-based system, so they can do anything in the field. They can take the pictures, they can upload. Really, they can do it on a cell phone, even though it's kind of hard because it's small. But my staff is able to work in the field and do things on site. So we're able to meet people where they are, however we have to do it.
So I'm glad to see in the notes that you're also working with MOCFS to maybe do where, it makes sense. People know to go to help at the CAP centers, and so they should be also helping people with this. So that's good. And I do have a request relative to what you brought up around the vacancy reduction strategy for my colleagues and for the public. As you know, the city's been working on a strategy to reduce the vacant and abandoned properties, but part of that is also the vacancy prevention side, which we know that home repair not only helps our older adults age in place with dignity, but it's also making sure that the house is in good shape so that, you know, once they unfortunately pass, then it's possible for the younger generation to be able to, and junior to have that property, and we avoid having a vacant building. And so I had asked in the last hearing to have this conversation around the priority blocks, which this year are like 308 for the vacancy reduction strategy, and making sure that when we talk about a whole block, we're not just talking about, we are talking about a whole block of vacants, but we also know that Ms. Jones might live in between. And so we want to make sure that Ms. Jones also has full access to be able to stay there. We want her to stay. So in addition to the homeowner's property tax credit, get that home repair so that she can enjoy the revitalization of the neighborhood that she deserves, considering she's been there for so long, and saw it in its best days and saw it in its worst, and needs to be able to see it in its best days again. So I'm encouraged that you're doing that, and I'd like to, you know, see the results in terms of how many you're looking at, and then you're putting them in the front of the line. Is that what's happening right now? Unless it's an emergency. Emergency, we got to get.
We are prioritizing, so the goal is when we bring the new people on, the beginning part of their caseload will be.
Oh, turn on the microphone, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
My fault.
So when we bring the new, you know, by the time, hopefully by the time our new people come on board and are onboarded, the I-team and neighborly folks have been able to add that metric so that we can identify those people. Those new people will begin with the first people on the caseload. When we pull them off the wait list, those will be the first people, the ones that are in the priority
Got it.
blocks.
So that's a two-pronged approach. It's looking at currently with those blocks who might be already in your
Absolutely.
pipeline and going through that process. And then
Right,
the
in
next
both
stage
shops, right.
would be the working on, you know, increasing that through targeted outreach, et cetera.
Absolutely.
I've been encouraging BVRC to actually include this in their dashboards every month. Because I think it's a really important concept, it's a really important part of whole blocks. So I'll continue to do that, especially since you'll be able to have the data. It sounds like, you know, fairly, I mean, you know, it's not easy. It's one of the things you can see is when the house was bought. And if it was bought 30 years ago, you know, the likelihood of an older adult being there is pretty high. So going through that process is going to be, when do you think
We've
you'll
already
have all
started.
that? Okay,
Technically, we're working in Carrollton Ridge right now, so we've started with that list. We're working on Carrollton Ridge, and we are also working through the Broadway East list. So we have so our data team currently pulled 2 lists of what they have already.
Yeah, just to take a look at it
Right, and
first
so those
before.
are the two neighborhoods that we're focusing on currently is Carrollton Ridge and Broadway East of what we already have in our system of, you know, that's like the low-hanging fruit of what we can get expedited and moved, you know, through the pipeline.
Great. I think Broadway East is included in the BVRC, but Carrollton Ridge is not, right?
There is some discussion about Carrollton Ridge.
Well, that's good. They need to include it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's good.
Only get two.
So, okay, I have a few more questions, but I'll yield to my colleagues and then come back. Thank you.
Councilman Blanchard, I believe you have something.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Briefly, just going to echo the very, very well-made point by my colleague of as important as this program is for the seniors in the homes, it is just as important of a program from a neighborhood perspective. And the amount of work and effort and money and time that has to go into rehabbing a vacant is so much smaller than the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure type situation. And so I think it is actually, I think it's important for elected officials to have clear data as to like how good of a just literal investment it is to be supporting senior homeowners now. And so having that be, it is secondary to helping the seniors who are living in the home, certainly, but it is also very, very important, and making it easy for us to digest is really important. The question I had, I was really interested in the no heat emergency triage effort specifically. The gentleman who had mentioned the very unacceptable situation that he's been in over the last several years. I've had several constituents who have brought up very similar types of issues. Can one of y'all talk through just from, okay, me as senior homeowner, I don't have heat in my home, it's wintertime. What are the actual steps proceeding, going from there to, okay, now I have heat in my home?
Oh, it's Becker. Okay, here we go. So, again, the easiest thing to do is to call 311. 311, like I said, we're working to revamp it. I don't have a date yet when it will be final, but we work to revamp it so that we'll cover all of our programs. But we do, when we get the SR, we have 24 hours. So if we get the SRs today, we have 24 hours to do our initial triage in light, and that's to call the person. We have a separate, a short no heat assessment to assess where they are, because we're trying to find out, is your heat not just working? Is it because your service is off? So we need to clear those questions up before we can send them that way. And then we, do the screening for the application. We don't do all of the rigorous stuff because we're trying to get them to the next phase of Brooks process. And so we're collecting with this particular kind of no heat streaming, because we're not using the federal funds, we can use a lower level of document collection. And like she said, if we find out that they need more money and they need federal funds, then that's gonna create the intensive document collection phase. But there's a lower bar when we use the different when we use the other grant funding sources. So these cases can potentially move, again, as fast as we can get the information over to Brookshire, but we have a commitment from 311 to be able to contact the person. What I can also tell you, what we have in place when we do that triage, if it's an older adult, we do offer electric blankets. We started that last year. We found that as like the lowest risk because we don't do space heaters anymore because of the risk of fire. So we do offer electric blankets if their electric is suitable to be able to handle it. The crisis team will deliver them if they're older adults. So the crisis team has vehicles, they will deliver them the same day. What I will say that we were able to do last no heat season, when we encountered older adults that didn't have heat, especially on the cold blue days, there were times where we had to do a shelter in a hotel for a day or two until we could get them, a contractor out or something like that if it was snowing, something like that. So because we've now reorganized to incorporate the ombudsman shop with light, it gives them some options once they do that initial triage to ensure the safety of the older adult, in that particular circumstance during the no heat season.
And then if I can just pick up, because till implementation of the new, So once we get the referral, it goes to our shop. We make another phone call. If they didn't necessarily get all the details on the unit itself. So we have our list of contractors. We know who can work on what kind of units. And we're trying to identify what type of unit they already have in the house. So do you have radiators? Do you have air blowing in through vents? And then we will send that client's referral information out to a contractor. That contractor will do what we call a service call, which circumvents our normal process. And they need to schedule directly with the contractor to come in and who will do the assessment and then hopefully do the replacement within that week. That contractor is still obligate to follow all of the rules and they still have to pull permits. All of that still has to happen. But usually by the time we get the referral for a no heat, we're looking at the end of the week, if not the week after.
The end of the week to do what?
To do a full replacement.
Okay.
Hopefully within 1 week. If that contractor doesn't have the capacity, we move to the next contractor. Because we do consider these priority cases. It is an emergency situation. So we are trying to move as fast as we can to get that schedule for that homeowner. There are circumstances where it won't be possible. We get there and we find out, well, the contractor gets there and they're reporting back to us that there is actually an electrical issue with the home, right? It's not that the furnace isn't just turning on, it's that, something's underpowered or something isn't working or they didn't pay their electricity bill or whatever that is. And so we always run into those situations, we have to deal with them ad hoc, and then it turns into a greater situation, and then they have to go back to Light to do the full document collection because maybe we do need to tap into federal resources, maybe we do need to do X, Y, or Z, and it's a larger project. But we handle those case by case, and it's not something that we don't deal with regularly. So the contractor has to be confident that the HVAC unit can be
The issue can be solved by
replace-
replacing the HVAC unit.
I'm sorry?
The issue can be solved by replacing the HVAC unit.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we are identifying that there are probably still other reasons that the homeowner is coming to us. So we know that we have to get back to them. This is just to get the HVAC either working or replaced so that they at least have heat in the home. And that, it's a safe place for them to be.
Understood. Very helpful. Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, no, thank you, Councilman, for the question, and thank you for the detailed answer. It's very helpful for us, also for our staff, and then for our residents who are here and also observing online to understand what those steps are. So appreciate that question. Vice Chair Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, DHCA friends, for being with us today. Within the LIGHT program, obviously there's an income threshold that's part of the eligibility there. But what other demographics are being tracked in terms of who's applying? So for example, right, is age, in as much as age impacts hubs and things like that, what data do you all have available or that gets tracked from in terms of people who are applying?
We get, of course, the owner's information, if there's co-owner's information, so we would get name, date of birth. We do have to ask questions like race, sex, is it a female head of household, because those are federal questions that we have to answer. We ask if they have a disability, so that's self-report. And then we have metrics. We have a tool from our data team that's imported in our neighborly system. So we track neighborhoods, census tract, congressional district, council district, all of those things. And like I said, we're adding the VCRI layers as well. That's what we're working on. Am I missing something? Oh, and if they're a legacy homeowner, that means that they've owned at least 15 years. So we'll be able to track if they're a legacy homeowner as well.
Part of the then track, so our district has lots of older adults in particular whose primary language is other than English. That's Spanish, Greek, Italian, Polish, all kinds of things. You mentioned race. Is language part of what gets tracked?
I don't think we ask the language question, but if they speak another language or need to read another language, they can ask for the language to be changed to do the application in a different language. And we used the language line for any particular barriers, so our coordinators are versed in how to use that. And then we have an assessment for the agency we have a lot of colleagues within the department that speak different languages, so we also have a directory, as well as if we need to pull in a colleague from a different shop to be able to communicate with somebody that speaks a different language that we may need. Because I can recall when we had a couple of times where we have needed to pull in somebody who, may speak French, or like Creole of Haitian descent, things like that. So we are, we work with that consistently.
Does that information that you pull, whether it's geographic or a race-based or something else, language-based, you mentioned kind of the outreach strategy, make sure people hear about this. Has that information have you noticed, this geographic community, this neighborhood, or this racial or ethnic group or language background, cultural group, seems like we're not seeing as many applications, as many calls from this area or this group of people. Has that been an actionable thing that has then shaped your outreach strategy?
So one of our most rigorous outreach strategies with anybody who's been non-speaking is our Spanish-speaking population. And so most of our tools are translated into Spanish, which we have in print. Our giveaways, we have all of that in Spanish. We do a lot of outreach in Spanish-speaking areas. And so when we ask people who request us to come, we do ask those questions so that we're prepared. We actually have one person who speaks Spanish on the light, well, not light, but in my division. And so we usually try to schedule her if we're going into that community with somebody else so that we can have somebody that can directly communicate with the population. But what I will say is, while we do the outreach, that is one of our hardest, populations to get applications from. I would say distrust of government is one of the main things. And because I will say, even on our crisis team, we find that extremely often, where we have to work with sometimes the police or the fire department to kind of beg them to let us house them temporarily, because they're kind of scared to go with our team or give information. And, we're telling them, like, we come in peace, we're not here to harm you. And, that has been like, it's taken negotiation to be able to deal with them. We've worked with CASA, sometimes as an intermediary, to just be able to help constituents get through. We've had to deal with that, where we have even gone and met them at CASA, to be able to lead the discussion, to be able to help them. So again, whatever tool that we have at our fingertips, or what makes, the constituent comfortable, is the environment that we are willing to go to be able to help the constituent.
I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and the intentionality behind that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, thank you. Before going to Councilmember Jones, just really quickly, you had mentioned the contractors you work with. Is there a list that you provide, or is that available to see? I'm just curious about that.
So we have the full list of contractors who are registered to do work with the city and the city of Baltimore, and I've worked with the Department of Finance for that list so that we have already have that down, who's registered and able to receive. And so it is not necessarily a public list. Through the process of the Office of Rehabilitation Services, the homeowner has agency in picking a contractor that they want to work with. A lot of names that they're already familiar with are able to receive or do business with the city of Baltimore. There isn't just like one list that we hand out, and there are a number of reasons for that. But we do have that full list of everybody who's willing to do, and we do ask those contractors, like, are you ready to, are you willing to work with this office? Do you want to participate in this, the emergency triage? We're just starting that process with them now. But then it's based on capacity and then kind of who's next in line to receive work.
Got it. Thank you. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just really quickly, I just had a question regarding the light intake and assessment pipeline sheet. They had the numbers, the light intake and assessment pipeline sheet. Just trying to get an understanding between like pre-application and application with the documents and what that kind of holdup looks like. Just to make sure I have a clear understanding. It says like the first quarter of FY26, that was 487 pre-applications, and that's just someone filling out an application and submitting it to you all. Is that correct? Is that what a pre-application is?
So on the left side is in total, right?
Yeah.
So that means that 487 people added themselves to our wait list first quarter of FY26, that's correct. And then on the right side, 266 of those were over the age of 55.
Okay, so, I'm talking about underneath that, it says applications and documents collected, but basically the 46.
So that means 46 people were added to that status of being in that document collection phase in first quarter.
Which means you have all of their documents and everything?
No.
Is that what that means? Oh,
No,
okay.
so that's what Brooke put it on. So in first quarter FY26, Light sent 37 applications to ORS.
Got you, okay. So and that's how many applications you sent out?
So that would have been completed and sent over to ORS, would have been 37 for first
Okay.
quarter.
And just for clarification, this is what I'm trying to understand, the process that it takes to be a pre-application into an application.
So the reason why we do a pre-application, so before a pre-application existed, we would do a complete application, we would collect all of the documents, we would get it to complete certification. But as we know, we don't have the capacity or the dollars to complete all of those applications, and they would sit. Because of the type of funding we have, an application and documents are only good for a calendar year. So what would happen would be by the time that they would get to our rehab department, we would have to recollect the documents. That was a customer service nightmare. So the pre-app was the fix to not completing it totally upfront and waiting until it could get further through the process. So pre-app is just a form that they fill out with the name of the owner, co-owner, and it asks some basic questions like what type of repair do you need? But it doesn't, we don't collect any documents, and it's all self-report. So it's like a holding place until we can actually get to you and service you so that we can start moving you through the pipeline to get to ORS.
And then once it gets to ORS, that's when it becomes an application. And then how long does it take, kind of once ORS gets it, how you would say, in order to be completed?
I'm happy to provide, I think at the last hearing I had, is it on the slides? There's, on the slides we presented then towards the end where the answers to the previous questions from the hearing, it has kind of the lifespan of a ORS job. I'm sorry. Give me just 1 second.
I understand. I was just trying to get to the idea because what I'm trying to get to is to figure out kind of what number would be completed in a quarter, because I noticed that part was blank.
I'm sorry.
Any idea? That
In a quarter?
It's that the application's completed and it's kind of no number there, so I was just wondering, at least on my sheet, in a quarter, how many may potentially get completed?
So again,
I'm
so from the light standpoint, it was 37 completed and sent to ORS.
Got it.
Yes.
Right, and so I would also just like to offer that in that time frame, we only had 2 coordinators working. So that's why we had 37 applications. What I do want to highlight that has not been mentioned today, the more applications we complete, it puts the wait list in Brooks' shop. So, because I know we talked about entertaining all of these ideas to get people off the wait list, but the more applications are completed, they're gonna sit in another space, in another wait list. One, because of capacity of ORS, but then also because of the amount of money that we have, you know, to be able to commit per fiscal year. So, which is, you know, why we're gonna get to the number of, you know, what is it gonna take to collectively wipe it out? We would have to get back, like we said, we're gonna get back with that number, what that looks like. But the more applications that are completed, because what we completed last fiscal year, that's sitting in her shop, is basically the funding that she, you know, can totally encumber all of the funding that she has for this year.
Yep.
So even if we completed an additional 250 applications, there would not be the money or the bandwidth to complete those 250 applications, if that makes sense.
And yep, it makes complete sense. And the point I'm trying to get to is, I probably mentioned this before, the biggest challenge is managing expectations. And I think that's where frustration sets in.
Absolutely.
And when you have 400 people in one quarter sending and thinking things are moving, then they think, okay, in a matter of time, I'm going to be next up. But then if only a fraction of those get sent over, and the ones that get sent over, it's almost like a year worth of funding already taken up of people in front of them. We then have to ask ourselves, is it best to continue to take these pre-applications, give people hope when we don't have yet a process of when we're going to clear these things out?
And so to respond to that,
Should we maybe consider, you know, while we clean this up, give people, hold on, a moratorium on some of this stuff, because, it will create frustration.
and that was one of the things over the years that was considered, but because we were a city program and that we know that emergencies come through, is why we never actually closed our list. Like I said, being a city program and then knowing that our partners were going through a situation with a wait list as well. And so we did, as a city agency, we looked at us as the last resource. So we did not want to close that door, you know, from any potential. So that was why it was never closed. But
I
I
understand,
what you're
and
saying.
I would just challenge that.
And that's why we're working on managing, how do we manage the people on the wait list to tell them where we are? And hopefully with the CSM system, it will create like a number so they know where they are in line. That's the thought, that with this new CSM, that will be part of it. And that was also part of what we were talking about with Councilwoman Ramos, of how do we stay in contact with the people who don't have email? Because, you know, if we're emailing updates, we still have a strong contingent of people. As you can see, most of the people that we deal with are, because over 55 is considered an older adult in some realms, 62 for some, but the most of our clients are older adults. And so how do we stay in contact with them knowing that they don't have, or they don't use all of the updated technology, you know, that we're moving to? So I do recognize that, and we are recognizing that we have to include a strategy that is inclusive of everybody.
And the last thing I would say, you may be exhausting yourself and your resources trying to stay in contact with people for over years. If there's this backlog, and that's resources that could be using, cutting down the backlog. Because the other thing is, I completely understand the thought of, you know, let's not shut it down or a moratorium, because this is the last line of defense and people need help. I would put out the idea of maybe it may be more useful to, you know, just leave it open just for emergencies. I think because we could potentially do more damage. Leaving the door open that really isn't open for folks. Absolutely. That, you know, like giving people a perception that, oh yeah, we're leaving this door open as your last line of defense, when technically it really doesn't exist. Because, you know, there's an elderly folk, to be honest, if my grandmother needed something done, she'd probably call me. But if she's hear about this program, she's not gonna wanna, you know, bother her grandson. So she's gonna call thinking maybe 6 months, a year, and get done. Where if my grandmother knew in 2 years it's gonna take to get it done, she just may call me to take care of it in the first place. So sometimes you kind of leave these elderly folks in the wind, where that could potentially be other help to kind of get them to fix it immediately. So I would just say we sometimes need to just be upfront and, you know, let people know what we can and what we can't do. And if only emergencies were taken care of, let's do that, and leave them an opportunity to make that decision for themselves.
I'll just say, Councilmember Jones, thank you for your comments. I could see by some of the nodding heads that you struck a chord with some folks. And we also understand the tension that exists in terms of trying to provide a program, deal with a backlog, handle emergencies, and all the things that come along with that. I did want to provide a little bit of opportunity. Director Harmon, I know with the Office of Older Adults, which you're very proud to have, I'm sure that you interface not only with the programs, but also with seniors. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, what you've observed and experienced in the process?
I'm going to go back to when we met, and thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to speak. We brought this up back in July about the communication. So I'll say thank you because I did work with the commissioner about putting together a graphic. I hadn't seen it until today. So I do want to look at it and review it, because I work with older adults every day. And guess what? I'm an older adult, and I struggle with the things that happen with aging. So I think I'm a pretty good expert at looking, and the fact that that's our lane every day. I also brought up in the last hearing related to communication and also the list, HABC. They open up the list. I'm gonna go back to a point that they open up the list for vouchers and then they close it. The issue that, and I have my resource coordinator here who talks to older adults every day who either have applied or they want information. And right now, what's happening in my office is, because the weather's changing, we're getting a lot of people who are calling us talking about that they want home repairs. Some of them are about furnaces not working. I agree. It's hard for us to talk to people and tell them that, hey, when you go in this process, it might be a year out or whatever. That's the hardest part, and that's the calls that we get, which was why I was pushing, even going back to my budget hearing, I talked about communication, because that's the first step to a resolution to your problem. I do think that you should maybe look at putting up something saying that, hey, you can only take a certain amount of applications or something, because that is a big issue that we confront in our office every day when they call, thinking that they're gonna get, you know, waited on or get the stuff that they need fixed in their home. It is frustrating. The other thing is, there are a lot of people that also call our office with the fact that they don't qualify for the program because and most programs have requirements. I know that I had talked to the commissioner and we had looked at maybe trying to do some kind of program for those ones who don't qualify. But I know because of funding, that probably is something that, you know, have to put on the back burner. But those are the things that we have going on. Related to the furnace, one of the things that we're working on is this office does a lot of outreach, and every single time that we go out, we always reach out to y'all, which I think we could be a very good vehicle because most of my events are very well attended. The larger events, we have 700-800 people, and they still be trying to come through the door, but because of capacity. Our lunch and learns that we do around the city are usually 40 to 50 people. That's the way in which you get. The other thing, being an older adult and working with older adults, I don't have to spend a lot of time putting it out on social media because there's a village. Saturday I was at an event. I spoke about my office. I gave out cards. Guess what? They have shared it with each other, okay, and with other people. I got a call this morning from a lady that got information from somebody who was at the event. When it comes to what some of the stuff that we're working on, which housing would be involved, and a way in which you can get your information out there is, I have submitted a proposal to the fire department about fire safety, because one of the things last year, which I'm quite sure the council is aware of, is a lot of the fatalities that we had last year were older adults. So we're working on an education campaign because we know that in the wintertime, people don't have, a furnace doesn't work. As was shared here, 5 years, that's a long time, and that's heartbreaking to hear. And also, it would be continuous from the winter through the summer, because people forget that in the wintertime it's the furnace, but in the summertime, because of the heat, we want to be cool. So we would be involving housing to go along once we start this up with the fire department, which we're meeting next week to work out some of the details of the proposal. So that would be yet another opportunity in which you could get the information out about the housing repair program. That is my thoughts. We also, because we had a meeting recently with Councilwoman Ramos related to older adults and homelessness, and you had made a request about resources. Mm-hmm. So what I did was, because you know that was put in my backyard, I have created a resource that we would like to share with the council.
Great.
We also have created a work process, which is what we use in our office from the time that we enter a phone. My background is I've done a lot of things, but I started out with customer service and in call centers. So as far as being able, how you should answer the phone, how you should work through a your situation. And one of the things in my office is, and I was glad to hear this, Nicole, that you said 48 hours that you would get back to people. We give ourselves 24 to 48 unless we get to a Friday, which it is Friday Eve, everybody. So I think that what I've heard this afternoon is a good start. And I know that you're probably gonna have to, once, which some of the stuff you've already started working, probably have to make some adjustments. But I really would like to review the graphic. And again, like I said in the last meeting in July, to housing, I can be of help to you, and I want to be of help to you. We are gonna do the age-friendly plan. You are a big part of that age-friendly, they're a big part of that age-friendly plan because it's called housing, which we will be starting to do feedback, which also, we can also bring back that information when we start moving around through the different districts, because a part of what we have to do is we have to find out what people's needs are, and putting that in place in the plan. Not necessarily all they want, right? Because I would ask for $1 million, okay? But that's not what I need, that's what I want. So that's another way in which we can turn around and bring back data or information to housing to say that this is what. So we hopefully, got my fingers crossed, because we are a small team, but we want to actually do focus groups or town halls, I want to call them engage in exchange, okay, events in each district, so that we can get feedback from a sample of everybody's district with the older adults. So I guess
That's music to our ears.
I need to be quiet now, but I'm just saying, I always offer up the fact that I am willing to help. That's what the Mayor's Office of Older Adults and Advocacy is here for. We are the bridge. We are the hub for you to get information about what's going on out there in the street. What older adults are saying and what they're going through. The council offices reach out to me all the time. I'm actually starting to, like I said, because of that meeting, we're going to share that with everybody in the council, so that when they get an older adult, if we're not available, or if it's something basic, that they would be able to help that older adult. Because one thing about customer service is, when you keep passing people from one person to another, that builds up frustration. And actually, customer service training is when a person makes that first call, they should be able to resolve their problem. And that's what we're going to try and do. So
Absolutely. Well, I'll say, Director Harmer, really appreciate your leadership, your experience, and your willingness to collaborate and share information, because it's so critically important. Councilman Ramos, did you have anything else?
Yeah, I had two more questions, if that's, it might be three. Deputy Commissioner, this chart here that talks about the pre-application, applications dot collection, this one. I guess initially I thought that the pre-application was a screening, but it's not really. So it's more of a sort of, you've applied, we're gonna place you in a placeholder state right now, and then once we're able to get you into the application phase, we'll do all of that. Because I was surprised to see that you're doing document and financial screening later on in the process. I thought you might want to do that in the beginning of the process. Turn on your microphone.
No, so the wait list is actually, like I said, a self-report. It's just, whomever, if it's somebody referring them, they can fill it out, family member can fill it out, anybody can go onto the portal and do the pre-app. And like I said, once they come off, that's when we first touch them, where we get the detailed information, to be able to qualify them. Again, we don't qualify them in the wait list stage, because to qualify them, we would need documents.
Got it. So, but you don't do the financial screening until later on, after you know what the needs are, and then you figure out which program they would go into?
Right. So, again, when they do the light assessment.
Yeah, I know that you've explained this a couple times. I'm really
Right.
sorry.
So when they're doing the light assessment, they're asking questions, like I said, about, what the income is,
Yeah.
about the house.
Yeah.
Do you have any trip and fall hazards? Again, because we're also asking so we are getting a full picture of who lives in the
Right,
house.
right. It's not
So it
just
might
the-
not just be the older adult. So,
Gotcha.
do you have somebody who needs a job? Like all of those questions. Do you need pest control? So all of those kind of questions that could potentially deem that they need other referrals other than the repair.
Right.
So that's what the assessment is. So once
Right.
they get that picture of knowing, okay, I need to complete that repair application, but I also need to send them, I'm sending them to ORS, but they have a child under 6 in the house, so I have to do the lead piece as
lead.
well, send them that way. I've identified that they might need assistance with, property tax, so I need to send them this way. So they've identified a few things that are in the house. They might be in foreclosure. So like I said, that assessment is assessing where they are to see if we can even get to a completed application, because there are some things that may be a barrier for the person even moving forward. Because if they're in foreclosure, they can't move forward in her process.
Right, and so then this number here around applications, that's not your assessment. That is the number of people that you've been able to figure out actually need home repair.
So
'Cause that's what we're talking about.
So pre-apps, you're looking at this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so first line pre-apps, that's what we just finished talking
Yep,
about. Those
yep.
are people that have
Got
just
it.
self-reported. Where we talk about the document collection phase, and that's blue, would be identified as blue on this graphic.
Got it, okay.
Those are people that we're either going back and forth, trying to get them into the right cadence of documents to be able to get them to completion. But that's where we are. We've actually done the application, we've done the paper, but we need all of the documents to go with it to get them over the hump. So again, people stay in that phase it's self-driven, because it's based upon when I can get your bank statement, when I can get, they might have to get their most recent, statement from Social Security. A lot of times with older adults, they might have 2000 and not have 2025, and
Sure.
we have to wait 30,
Yep.
60 days for them to get a new one in the mail. So it's going through that cadence of getting all of the correct documents that certifies that application. The assessment phase is doing, like I said, the person reviewing it, they're actually doing an assessment tool to see what that person needs. That's step 2.
I'm sorry, I just don't see assessment in any of these charts. And so I'm just trying to figure out, based on the application and I believe that the application completion is that initial assessment, right?
No.
Then
It's
you
not
would go-
completed until all the documents are there.
Sure.
Which would be step 4, certification. That's when it's deemed complete.
Got it, okay. So then the certification phase is when then you figure out who needs to go to ORS and who needs to go to.
They know that at the assessment point, step 2.
Right, after the assessment, right, okay. And so, because I'm trying to find the right.
Because
chart.
different programs require different documents. So they've
Yeah.
already assessed what programs they need to go to in step 2.
Right, okay, I'm
If you
trying
look
to
at this-
find that document over here. Here we are, okay. So it's this one.
Or I'm looking at this one, because it has all of the details for you.
Got it, okay, right here. So then, okay, so the certification phase, got it, okay. And then, under the certification phase, because let me just tell you what I'm looking for. I want to know the number of people that have applied for home repair only, okay? Let me rephrase. So that's the intake, okay, you've got through completion. the number of folks that are awaiting home repair.
Those are the numbers that Brooke presented. Those are the people that have made it to ORS, and they are waiting to be into the scope and assessment phase. So those are the ones that say the Office of Rehabilitation Services. I believe they have a yellow tab at the top.
Yeah, but for the quarter, it's 37. But like, I know 37 is not
Those are
the number.
37 completed applications. And again, what you need to remember is they got 37 to completion while they're still working with this whole pool of people to get them to completion.
Right, and, right, you're working with 135 people and 108, so there's because that was my next question is, like, who are you
No,
working
they're
with?
working with
Sure.
1,134 people in total, what, 46 from the quarter? That 46 would qualify as 46 that have come off the wait list and made it to the document collection phase. So I just broke the number out of how many were added. So that 46 is how many that went into that phase during the quarter. But inclusively, we have 1,134 people in total, not just hubs. If you want to look at the ones that are 55 and older, that's the 879 number that the coordinators are working with to get to a completed application phase. So they're in some phase of the assessment, completing with the documents and all of that kind of stuff. That's
Right, I'm not talking about hubs right the second, I'm just talking about
So,
what
okay,
is
so on the left-hand side.
ORS. Because I was leading to this other issue of hubs is here, it's a separate process, it's just for home repair.
It's not a separate process.
So have you combined the process recently?
It's always been one process.
No.
The number that she's seeing, excuse me for stopping in, and forgive me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, that is just us. We call our internal people 55 and older in like our hubs process too. This is separate from the external hubs number.
Okay, that has to be changed, because that's what's confusing here is we have talked about hubs being the Civic Works and partners, right? And then, is this hubs the same, it's not the
No.
same as that hubs?
No, this is just our internal numbers.
For older adults?
Yes.
So, okay, so I was looking for the older adult category, so that's it. It was called hubs, so it was confusing, because when I think of hubs, I think of the Civic Works hubs, okay? Got it. Okay, so this number here with the hubs is the older adults.
Those are the older adults as picked out from our total, so the
That's where I was trying
left-hand
to
side
get
of the
to.
column is everybody, the right-hand side are 55 plus. It's also, please note that our internal older adult age is 55 plus, like the external hubs partners is 65 plus. So there is a little bit of a differentiation there.
Right.
No, I understand that. Okay, so there's out of the pre-application, okay, thanks, you knew where I was going with that. I think that just for our purposes of tracking, we may want to call that something else, because I'm tracking hubs separately from your hubs.
Okay.
Or something, I don't know, maybe we just combine it all, who knows? But this is, so I appreciate the clarity. So this hubs is, the 2,700 is in the pre-app phase, and then they're in sort of this holding pattern. You're working to get the document collection from 870 older adults, and the completion so far is the 919. And then you go to these other charts that show us where we are once they get to your side of things.
Correct.
Got it, okay. I know you explained that a couple times, I just needed to go through it again. But this hubs was confusing, because I was thinking about our external hubs partners. So if we're calling the entire process and program of older adult home repair hubs, then that's really what we want to focus on I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this.
I think we got it.
Then we need to think about that, and we can talk about that further. But this was the number I was working on, is trying to figure out this older adult piece, so thanks.
Okay.
The other piece here that I was
Councilmember, I mean, please proceed, but I know we're about getting close on time, so.
Absolutely. And I mean, this has been a very good conversation. I do have our hubs partners here, because just in case we needed to ask any questions, and I will set up with them as well. But I was really mostly interested in where we are with the pipeline on the older adults. And so I think I want to see, moving forward, just a really good flow chart of where we are with the older adult programs, because sifting between 2 and 3 screens is hard to do. So hopefully we can work on what that dashboard.
I just wanted you to have a picture of what we deal with in totality versus, our older adult clients. So that's why I presented it that way. Because I think a lot of times people think like that's all that we do. And it's the same coordinators working on all of those cases. So, I just wanted everybody to be clear that that's not specifically working on 55 and older. They're working on all of the cases collectively. Like we don't have anybody that's just dedicated to just that.
Got it. Okay.
At least right now, we don't.
Right.
And I'll just say, Councilmember Ramos, thank you for the question, and then thank you for the clarification. Councilmember Ramos also mentioned our partners, so if there's anything that you guys wanted to add at this point, or any issues that you wanted to bring up, open to it.
Lauren, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
All right. Well, I will just say, we really have some great partners, and I appreciate everyone who's doing the work here. I appreciate my colleagues. I appreciate the fact that, we had some very pointed questions, had some committee requests. Also, our Office of Older Adults. Appreciate the mayor's office being here. Appreciate our residents coming out as well and sharing those firsthand accounts of what it's like to be dealing with the program and dealing with these issues. Again, as last time, we left this open because we knew that there were going to be additional follow-ups and questions, and so it's our intent to leave it open again, because I know there are some additional items that we'd like to get more clarification on and more work to be done. So again, we will stand in recess, but again, I really appreciate everything that everyone has contributed to this conversation and making sure that we take care of the most important people in our city, our older adults. So again, thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate your time, and we'll stand adjourned.
Okay, and can you ask the 2 people that spoke to wait for us so that we can touch base with them?
Oh yes, they are waiting on you.
They're waiting on you.
Thank you.